This girl was locked inside of a coffin-sized box for 7 years. In May 1977, Colleen Stan, a 20-year-old woman, was hitchhiking to a friend's birthday party when she accepted a ride from Cameron and Janice Hooker, a married couple with a young child. Instead of taking her to the party, the Hookers abducted Colleen and took her to their home in Red Bluff, California. For the next 7 years, Colleen was held captive in a small, coffin-like box. She was subjected to extreme physical and psychological abuse. Colleen was also brainwashed and manipulated into believing that an underground organization known as the Company would harm her family if she attempted to escape or seek help. Colleen's captivity ended in 1984 when she was allowed to visit her family. During this visit, she revealed her horrifying ordeal to her family, who immediately contacted law enforcement. Cameron Hooker was convicted of kidnapping and various sexual offenses and was sentenced to 104 years in prison.
Boy, the mental trauma she had to endure after that, bro. Being locked in a coffin-sized box for that long? Sheesh.
I know you belong to some.
Dang, that's crazy, bro. Man, there's some sick people out here, bro.
Doctors working midnight shift get horrified after they capture the unexpected on the abandoned floor.
Oh, lights are. Go in. Go in. Go in. Figure out where the lights are. I don't like that. I don't like that. Do it.
They look like evil eyes. You guys can come with me.
Yeah, of course we're going with you.
Thanks. Ooh, it feels great. Was that you? Yeah. That's right. It feels good. Yes, it did. It did. How did you not see that?
Okay. I seen it move, but I don't know, man. Some of that stuff be fake, bro. Like, they be setting that stuff up. I don't know.
For the record, you are guilty of killing many women and girls.
Yes. Yes, that's true.
Ted, how did it happen? Take me back. What are the antecedents of the behavior that we've seen? So much grief, so much sorrow, so much pain for so many people. Where did it start? How did this moment come about?
I grew up in a wonderful home with two dedicated and loving parents, one of 5 brothers and sisters. But as a young boy, and I mean the boy of 12 or 13, certainly, that I encountered, again, the local grocery store, the local drugstore, the softcore pornography, what people call softcore. As young boys do, we explored the back roads and sideways and byways of our neighborhood, and oftentimes people would dump the garbage and whatever they were cleaning out of their house, and from time to time we'd come across pornographic books of a harder nature than more graphic, you might say, more explicit nature than we would encounter, let's say, in your local grocery store.
Wow.
These are videos humans were never meant to see. This is Nicholas Cruz, who's an American school shooter. He went to Parkland High School in Florida, where he shot 34 people, killing 17, and injuring 17 others on February 14th, 2018. The video I'm about to show you is him in prison talking to his brother, not long after he was arrested after committing this horrible act. The video is just disturbing and kind of sad, because imagine this is you talking to your brother who just killed 17 people in a school.
You're only 19, dude. You know how many years you had ahead of you? You know how many years you had? Years. You're still stuck in your teenage mindset and you did this dumb shit. You're not thinking about your future. still love you. Still love you too. Bro, like, I mean, I wish I could have prevented this. Cause I feel like this is a big part of like my fault also. Cause, you know, we grew up together. Like, I know I was the nicest to you. I know I probably made you feel like shit. You told me that, I'm pretty sure that you told me that I made you want to kill yourself or something. And I'm sorry that I grew up being a dumb jerk to you.
And you know what's crazy? Even crazy about that is you have to go backwards to see why would somebody want to go shoot up a school full of kids. Like, something had to happen in their childhood. I mean, that's no excuse for doing it, but man, that's why we as parents got to be attentive, bro, because these kids be holding so much anger and built up frustrations, and they don't know how to express it, because these kids these days are super silent, like introverted as heck.
This is Funky Town, one of the worst cartel executions.
So you may have seen this image floating around the internet today, because this image, which was recently released, was taken before Emma Brown, featured below, took a gun and turned it on her father and then herself. The photo is from last year in September, and the plan was part of a murder plot that her and another 12-year-old girl came up with. It was later discovered that Emma's plan was to kill her family and her pets and then run away with a friend. And after she shot her father in the abdomen, she was running towards the driveway when it's believed that she panicked and turned the gun on herself. This all happened in Texas, and now authorities believe that she was headed towards the driveway so she could grab her car, drive about 230 miles to her friend, and then the both of them were going to drive to Georgia together. It's also now believed that Emma didn't come up with this plan herself. It was actually planned by the friend, but they're not releasing the friend's name, and it's not clear how Emma and her met. It's a little implied that cops are blaming social media for this. They issued a statement that basically said, now is a good time to make sure you know who your kids' friends are, especially if they're meeting people off the internet, because you don't ever really know what they're talking about.
That's true. Monitor them kids, man. Monitor them kids.
Was your throat cut?
Yeah. Oh.
Grandma?
Oh my God.
I'm not going to ask any questions right now until we get.
Man, that's rough, bro, because I could feel her pain. Like, it makes you wonder, where did I go wrong? Like, what didn't I give you? I gave you everything, and sometimes that'd be the problem. We give them too much of the wrong thing and not enough of the right thing, and that's where you got to find the balance, man. That's crazy.
2 crimes happened at once caught on camera. Two crimes happened at once caught on camera.
What? Wait a minute, man. A man kidnapped a child. Really, bro? Nah, I gotta look at that again.
2 crimes happened at once caught on camera.
Okay, it looked like the kid was kicking, trying to get away from him, and the girl obviously dropped something, looked like a bag full of blood or something. I don't know, man, but that was a crazy little 9 seconds. I don't know.
This girl was killed by the last person anyone would suspect. On the 8th of March 2020, Britney Ai shouted to her dad James, "I'll beat you home." Britney had just been watching her dad play in a band and had organised a lift home with her best friend. The friend in question was 18-year-old Bryce Dickey. Britney and Bryce were so close that she actually referred to him as her big brother. Britney was 16 years old and Bryce was always there for her and her family. However, that day, far from beating her dad home, she would actually never turn up. Britney and her family lived in Nevada. The area had a safe community feel, and Britney's dad trusted Bryce to get his daughter home safe. However, as time ticked on, James got really worried. He sent several texts to his daughter trying to see when she was due home. He also tried to call her but got no response. When investigators got involved, they interviewed 18-year-old Bryce. All they knew was he was the last reported person to have seen her. Now, at the time, he reported being equally concerned about her whereabouts. He told police that they'd driven round for 3.5 hours before he dropped her off at Spring Creek High School. He said that she told him she was meeting up with a new friend. Unfortunately, he didn't know who this was. He last saw her getting into a green pickup truck and he reportedly saw a white, tall male in a cowboy hat. He told police that he was so concerned he'd sent several Snapchat messages to Britney, but she hadn't responded. Then on the 11th of March, a terrible discovery was made. Britney's body was found. She'd been wrapped in tarpaulin, and there was evidence that she'd been AR'd before she was killed. Bryce expressed his sorrow on social media. He referred to her as sis and wrote, "We love you so much, just know that you won't ever be forgotten." Things started to unfold, however, when Bryce gave a DNA sample. Now, prior to this, Bryce had told police that his and Britney's relationship was completely platonic. However, after the DNA sample, it was clear that Bryce had had sexual contact with Britney. He then decided to change his story. He said that he had been physical with Britney, but this was nothing to do with the murder. However, when police searched his house, they found blood-stained boots and he was arrested. It became clear that he had made up the story of the pickup truck and the male in the cowboy hat. At his trial, he was found guilty of first-degree murder and he got life.
As he should. That's the very first person I would have suspected. Especially if you was the last person to see her or she was with. Yeah, I wouldn't have failed for that.
They made this 16-year-old boy dig his own grave before killing him on camera. I really couldn't find much on this besides the video and that the killer was arrested shortly after. But if I had to guess what it was, it's probably some cartel activity, so I'm just going to explain the video. The video is 2 minutes and 11 seconds long, and it was shot in the forest or jungle during the day. As you play the video, it opens up as a POV style with someone pointing a pistol at the victim's head, who is on your screen right now. He is 16 years old. The victim is seen wearing jeans and a red tank top. He doesn't have his hands tied and isn't bounded up at all. After 9 seconds into the video, it jump cuts to the victim digging a hole with some gardening tool. This will be his final resting place. The person filming is still pointing a gun at the victim, and at around 15 seconds into the video, it jump cuts again and shows the victim lying on his back in the grave he just dug for himself. The victim has his arms on his body as he prepares for the worst. Another man then enters the shot with a black hoodie on with the hoodie up to hide his face. He's holding a machete in his right hand, and as the victim is lying in the grave, he strikes him multiple times in the back of the neck, which makes the victim scream out terrifying groans. The victim is not tied up, so he tries to protect himself and puts his hands up as he continues to groan in pain. The killer then proceeds to use the machete in a stabbing type motion, stabbing the side of the victim's neck, which causes horrifying gurgling and heaving type sounds that you will never forget. The killer then starts to stab the victim in the top of his chest and the front of his neck. And again, the victim lets out horrible groaning sounds which continuously change in pitch as he is stabbed. The victim then moves to his side and attempts to cover his neck with his arms, but the killer then starts hacking away like a maniac at the victim's head but ends up hitting his arms and hands, causing extremely deep cuts. The killer then starts hitting the back of the victim's neck again since he can't cover it, and you then hear these horrifying sounds of blade meeting bone. The machete isn't the sharpest either, which makes this 100 times worse for the victim. At this point in the video, somebody behind the camera starts mocking the victim's moans and groans, and just starts making fun of him, which is just horrible. The killer then continues to stab, hack, and slash at the victim as he is still alive trying to protect himself. His arms, neck, chest, and hands are completely covered in deep cuts, and he is drenched in blood. At about 1 minute and 38 seconds into the video, it jump cuts again to a close-up of the victim's body, who is now dead. Nearly decapitated, his head is hanging on by a few strands of skin. The killer then begins cutting through the remaining pieces of flesh, and at this point you can really tell how blunt the blade is, as the killer has difficulty cutting through the skin, which puts into perspective how long and painful it was for the victim. This is such a disturbing case, and luckily the killer was caught shortly after this. I feel so bad for this young man, and I can't believe stuff like this happens. I pray you never go searching for this video because it's so disturbing and it would definitely mess up your mental for weeks.
I don't know if that website still exists, but it used to be a website back in the day called rotten.com. Don't go. Kids, don't go. No, don't do that. But I just wanted to say that because that's where I first started seeing those gory type of videos and pictures. And I got traumatized by it young. This was an early 2099, 98, 99, when we had AOL dial-up. Bro, but that's crazy, man. I really feel sorry for that kid, man. And I'm glad they arrested the dude because cartels, they get away with that a lot. YouTubers that accidentally recorded a murder live.
I will be showing the video, but nonetheless, hi, my name is Ethan, and here's everything you need to know in under 1 minute. In September of 2017, 31-year-old Laura Wallen vanished into thin air. Her boyfriend Tyler Tessier had played the part of the worried boyfriend desperate for answers. However, he was living a double life. He had a fiance, and he feared that Laura would expose her pregnancy. The night of her unaliving, Laura texted her friend and stated, "Tyler has taken me to an open field in Damascus. I'm not sure why we're here, but it's in the middle of nowhere." Her body was found a few days later. Sam and Colby eventually uploaded a video where they were in the same area at the same time, and they captured a woman begging for help. Here's the video.
What the? Did you get that? Yeah, I got that. Somebody is screaming. Someone's screaming bloody murder. Whoa. Guys, what the? Do you hear that? Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Like, bro, you got the woman pregnant, bro. Take the L, fam. Take the L and keep it pushing, because taking somebody's life, bro, you the one stepped out. God. One of the most demonic, brutal crimes committed by a woman. This video is the area of where the crime happened.
Don't hate me, but this story is too extreme to keep under 1 minute. Hi, my name is Ethan, and here's everything you need to know in under a minute and a half. 20-year-old Christa Pike began to feel jealous of her friend, 19-year-old Colleen Slimmers, as she feared that she was trying to steal her boyfriend Tadarrell Shipp from her. However, later on, Colleen's friends claimed that that was far from the truth. On January 12, 1995, Christa, Tadarrell, and one of their friends, Shadala Peterson, had lured Colleen into the woods near the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, promising her free weed. Once they were there, Christa bashed Colleen's head with her knee and then began hitting her repeatedly. They tortured and stabbed Colleen for almost an hour, and eventually Tadarrell had carved a satanic symbol in her chest. The couple apparently sacrificed Colleen to the devil, and Christa even kept a piece of Colleen's skull as a trophy. The next day, Colleen's body was found, and Christa was almost immediately turned in as she was seen dancing around the room, telling her friends about the crime that she had just committed. She even showed off the piece of Colleen's skull that she had. She was arrested and told investigators everything, and her confession was 42 pages long. She was sentenced to death and still has not shown any remorse. As of today, she is still alive, and people are actually fighting that her death sentence be removed and she just serve life in prison. But let me know what you guys think.
Do you remember the story of the adult woman who was pretending to be a child in order to get adopted? Well, the story is so much crazier than that. In 2010, the Barnett family adopted Natalia Grace, a 6-year-old girl from Ukraine. But shortly after the adoption, the family claimed that Natalia wasn't who she said she was. She couldn't speak any Ukrainian, which the family thought was weird, but she was also showing signs of being post-puberty, meaning she probably wasn't 6 years old. So the parents got a bone density test done on her, and the doctor said that she was at least 14, if not older. And on top of that, her behavior was starting to become menacing. She would stand over the parents' beds at night saying she was just waiting for the right time, and she threatened violence against the 3 other sons. One time she even tried to poison the mother. But what do the parents do? They get her age legally changed to 22 years old, rent her an apartment, and leave her in it by herself. They thought they were escaping a murderer, but many believe that they abandoned a disabled child. There's so many twists and turns to this story, and I do a whole deep dive on my podcast this week.
Here's everything you need to know about the real Texas Chainsaw Massacre inspiration, Ed Gein. Ed was the son of George and Augusta Gein, with George being a raging alcoholic and Augusta being a Bible-thumping Lutheran. The family would buy a farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin when Ed was still a child, where Ed, his brother, and his parents would begin living in almost complete isolation. As Ed's mother fell deeper into some disturbing religious beliefs, she stopped allowing visitors and only allowed Ed to go to and from school, while being punished if he attempted to make any friends. Ed's former classmates described him as being very odd and explained that he would have random laughing fits while talking to no one in the middle of class. When Ed's father passed away in 1940, Ed's brother began growing concerned with Ed and his mother's relationship. See, Augusta had a specific obsession over the Old Testament and Revelation in the Bible. She also taught Ed that all women were inherently evil. As Augusta's extreme and oftentimes evil belief system continued to rub off on Ed, a major fire would start up on the farm. By the time the fire was put out, Ed and his mother were both safe. However, his only brother Henry was still missing. Henry was found deceased a few days later, face down in the woods. And although it looked like he had been severely beaten in the head, his death was unexplainably ruled as heart failure. In hindsight, this was most likely Ed's first murder. Only a year after Ed's brother's death, Ed's mother, Augusta, would die of a stroke. This would leave Ed completely alone in the world and absolutely devastated. Ed continued living on the farm and boarded up all rooms his mother inhabited, leaving all of her items untouched. Ed would confine himself to a small room off of the kitchen while beginning to gain an obsession with cannibalism and began subscribing to some very disturbing and gruesome magazines. And in 1957, it became immensely clear that Ed's dark fantasies had turned into realities. On November 16, 1957, hardware store owner Bernice Warden would disappear. Bernice saw a few customers at her store that day, but one of those customers were Ed Gein. With this information verified on a receipt, Ed was quickly investigated and arrested. And this is where the real horror begins. When police entered Ed's home, they found one of the most gruesome crime scenes in American history. And Bernice Warden's decapitated body may have been among the least disturbing things that was inside that home. Gein had decorated his entire house in human bones and flesh, including bowls made from human skulls, couch covers and wastebaskets made from human flesh, several human face masks, as well as countless body parts littered throughout the home. Ed admitted to one other murder, but is suspected to have committed several more. Gein also admitted to robbing bodies from graves and bringing them back home. Gein was diagnosed with schizophrenia and would be found insane in trial. Gein would be institutionalized in a mental health hospital, and his home would be burnt to the ground by an arsonist. He would take his last breath in a mental health institution in 1984. Ed was laid to rest alongside his family in Plainfield, Wisconsin, but the sick legend of Ed Gein will live on for years to come.
Yeah, I don't think this is the Chainsaw Massacre inspired, but yeah, that's weird though. It's really weird.
Have you ever wondered how accurate police sketches are? I'm going to show you a sketch, then the person, and we're going to see. And this is part of a series, so make sure you follow along. This is the Unabomber, probably the most famous police sketch ever drawn. And this is what was seen in 1987 by the only woman to ever see him in action. He'd go on to mail 16 bombs across the country over the course of 18 years. And this is a picture of a young Ted Kaczynski, the man that did it. The Unabomber was incredibly hard to catch because he lived in this shed and was a total recluse. It was actually his brother's wife that suggested that Ted was the Unabomber because she recognized his writing style in a letter that he had written to authorities. Thank God for observant women, and let me know if there's anyone else you want to see.
What does the Sandy Hook shooter, the Virginia Tech shooter, the Santa Fe shooter, among other 30-plus shootings, have in common? They were all influenced by Columbine. What does that tell you? They got exactly what they wanted. Sue Klebold, Dylan Klebold's mother, still gets letters from women who are in love with Dylan, not to say the least.
Wow. For real? That's crazy, bro. They still like him after all of that? We need to check those women too, cause yeah.
Michigan high school student Jordan DeMay was contacted by a woman on Instagram by the name of Danny Roberts. The two talked for weeks, and eventually Danny talked Jordan into sending her explicit images of himself, which he ultimately did. However, shortly after, Danny, who was actually Samuel Ogoshi, a 22-year-old Nigerian scammer, demanded Jordan to send him $1,000 or he would post the photos all over the internet until they went viral.
Hold on, let me stop this. It said, you know I know where you go to school. You know what I can send to everyone. You know I can ruin your life.
And sent the only money he had, which was $300. But this wasn't good enough for Samuel. He then threatened to send the explicit images to his family and friends if he didn't send the additional $700. Tragically, the next morning, Jordan was found dead of a gunshot wound on March 25, 2022. Samuel was one of 3 men, all from Lagos, Nigeria, who were arrested and accused of extorting more than 100 young men and teenage boys in the United States. All 3 men have been charged and are awaiting extradition to the U.S.
Oh, they gonna do their ass bad when they get here.
And tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, each one she passes.
The Mr. Cruel case. Let's go see if we can find that.
The murderer and serial rapist known as Mr. Cruel is one of Australia's most infamous uncaught criminals. And this story will send shivers down your spine. So this story stretches all the way back to 1987, and that's where it begins, in Lower Plenty, Australia. It was at around 4 a.m. on August 22nd, 1987, when a man armed with a knife, a handgun, and wearing a balaclava broke into a family home in that town. This man then locked both of the parents in a closet, tied their young son onto a bed, and then proceeded to assault the 11-year-old daughter for hours on end. He had also cut the phone line, so there was no way that they could call for help. And these images that I'm showing on screen like this one are real police sketches. These sketches were based on the description of the attacker given by children and survivors of these assaults. The nickname Mr. Cruel was actually given to the perpetrator by the media after they discovered a police report where the perpetrator was described as being super cool and super cruel. But it would only be a few more months until Mr. Cruel would strike again, on December 27th, 1987. On that day, it was late at night, he once again broke into a family home through a back door, this time at around 5:20 a.m., armed with a knife and a handgun, and wearing that same eerie mask. But this time the perpetrator bound and gagged the parents, demanded money, and then kidnapped their daughter. Now, in an interesting twist in this case, when Mr. Cruel actually abducted the 10-year-old daughter Sharon, he addressed her by her name as if he had known who she was before the attack occurred. After Mr. Cruel left with their daughter, the father in the family freed himself and rushed to call the police, but noticed that once again their phone lines had been cut. So he ran to the neighbor's house to phone the police, but sadly, their daughter was still gone. But just 18 hours later, 10-year-old Sharon would be discovered walking the streets dressed in a garbage bag. And her description of what had happened to her was extremely strange. Now, she had been assaulted multiple times and put through absolute hell, but she did tell the police that the perpetrator had given her a thorough bath. He had clipped her fingernails and her toenails, he had flossed her teeth and removed any forensic evidence. But once again, the only evidence that police had to go on about their perpetrator was the physical description of a man wearing a dark jumpsuit and that eerie ski mask. And even though Mr. Cruel was all over the newspapers, these are sketches that were provided by the police, no one knew who he was. But he was still there lurking in the shadows, and he would strike again soon. On July 3rd of 1990, in a town nearby the other two towns where the previous assaults had taken place, another child was kidnapped. It was 15-year-old Nicola Linus, pictured here. On that day, the Linus parents had left their two daughters alone at home while they were attending a party, and at around midnight, the two daughters were awoken, once again, by a man wearing a ski mask. He would end up taking 13-year-old Nicola hostage and leaving the other daughter in the house, and this is where the story takes a very strange and bizarre turn. I'm about to run out of time, but Mr. Cruel was a horrible man, and this story does unfortunately end in murder, so I'm going to post a part 2 here soon.
That man had to be like a cop or something. I mean, because the story don't add up, bro. It's crazy.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Good. What's it like being in here all the time?
What's it like being in here? You have your problems with some staff don't like you, James. Oh, you're a serial killer! You know, biz and stuff. And
Have you got any friends here at all?
no, I stick to myself. I just stick in the cell with myself. I don't even care about going outdoors. There's nothing out there. I don't smoke anymore.
So what's your day like? How does it start?
I spend 24/7 in the cell, watching TV, reading the Bible, writing letters to Dawn, sitting around doing a lot of thinking, preparing, memory, going back in time, memory of everything I've been through in my life, and then just preparing for my death. Get all the tears out of me and stuff so I won't cry and jazz.
It's crazy. She longs to be like a normal person. You see, she fixing her hair when he pull up, like she kind of like him or whatever, bro. Like, this is misunderstood to the fullest now. I'm not trying to justify anything she did, but bro, like the world the world that exists today, man, is full of a lot of things that, you know, a lot of people ain't gonna be able to fathom, bro. Like, this life gets so hard, it just make people click out. It's not that they're crazy, you just become overwhelmed with life and you just start doing stuff, you know, you don't care no more, you know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of misunderstood people out there, bro. I always say serial killers are not crazy. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing, man. And if you look at like serial killer cases, it's always a pattern. It's like, I want you to pay for something you did to somebody else, because it's like they're projecting what happened to them on those situations. Like, before you do it to another child, I'm gonna kill you. You know what I'm saying? Or something like that, bro. But I don't know. That's just my theory, man. But hey, if you like what you saw, make sure you like, subscribe, get in the comments and let me know what you think, man. Go join the Discord, send me videos that you want to see me react to, man. But until next time, folks,